What's going on, everybody? This is your tour guide around SWAC C Wells coming at you with another video today. Y'all make sure y'all lock in with us. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, and become a part of the SWAC Talk family by becoming a member. 99 cents gets you a membership to the YouTube channel. We have special perks coming at you. We're going to be dropping special members only videos and shorts. I'm going to have rants and reactions to different things that I want to put there. So if you want to get everything, man, become a member of the Swag Talk crew for 99 cents and get down with the get down, man. And so we're going to still be bringing y'all a lot of stuff, swag smoke and everything like that, and all our normal videos. But we also bring y'all that membership tier. So get down with that. Check out the Facebook and Instagram, both Swag Talk, Twitter Swag Talk 76. And now let's get on with the show, man. Let's do it.
Your guy. Wednesday, Sundays, catch the ride. Football hoops, we breaking wide. Stats and facts, truth on high. SWAT talk where the convo's real. From Texas to Florida, we seal the deal. Just pull up, the vibes are real. Chopping it up, we spin the wheel. Hit the corner of the field, we strategize. Breaking the game down, no disguise. Play by play, we analyze. I wear sharp, we magnify. SWAT talk where the convo's real. From Texas to Florida, we seal the deal. Just pull up, the vibes are real. Chopping it up, we spin the wheel. Wednesdays, heat, Sundays, ignite. We talking legends shining bright. Back and forth, day or night. This the plug, we bring the light. SWAT talk where the convo's real. From Texas to Florida, we seal the deal. Cats pull up, the vibes are real. Chopping it up, we spin the wheel. Wednesdays, heat, Sundays, ignite. We talking legends shining bright. Back and forth, day or night. It's the plug, we bring the light. SWAT talk where the convo's real. From Texas to Florida, we seal the deal. Cats pull up, the vibes are real. Chopping it up, we spin the wheel.
All right, everybody, what is going on? How y'all doing? Welcome to today's edition of Swag Talk, the show we cover the swag inside and out. And I am your tour guide, C Wells, coming at you. And we are making our way through our 12-team previews. We have only 3 more after this. So we'll be wrapping these up in this upcoming week. Got probably Friday, maybe even Saturday morning, I'll drop my week 0 preview. Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Me and my brother, Coach 67 Sports TV, gonna be live previewing Southern University football, which we try to do our thing every so often. So we're gonna link up and do that. So let's go ahead and talk about the team that we have here, the Prairie View Panthers. New team, new coach, new energy, um, new everything. So this is a team that is starting over fresh. Moving on from Bubba McDowell, bringing in Tremaine Jackson, who has brought in a high energy and is definitely pushing forth a culture change for the Panthers and the program as a whole. And right now, they are they're making moves. They're selling what they have, and they're kind of moving strong in that direction. So we're gonna try to take a look at what I expect from them. I could be 100% right. I could be 100% wrong. I could be 50-50. I could be 75%, whatever. I honestly, man, this one here to me is probably even more difficult than the Valley one, because this team has the potential to be anywhere. Obviously, the potential for this team to be really good is high. I don't think this team will be bad by any stretch of the imagination, but they may not reach a mark where a lot of people think they will. And that I leave that to the other people, what I'm saying, all the really, really high hopes. I leave that to everybody else. For me, I'm trying to keep it a little grounded, but hey, I love to be proven wrong. So we're gonna talk Panther football to the best that I can, and we'll see what we see. So as we've done in all of these, we're gonna take a look back first before we move forward, and see what basically led to the Panthers moving in a different direction. Last season they were ninth in scoring offense at 21 points per game. They were sixth in scoring defense at 27.5 points per game. Total offense, they were seventh at 313 yards per game, averaged 4.9 yards per play, with 24 touchdowns. Defensively, they were seventh at 364 yards per game, averaged 5.5 yards per play, and gave up 35 touchdowns. Rushing offense, they were ninth at 113 yards per game, only had 11 touchdowns, which are the second fewest in the conference last season. Averaged 3.2 yards per carry, which would be the third fewest mark on the season. Defensively, they were third against the run at 146 yards per game, 18 touchdowns, 4.3 yards per play. So the run defense was actually really, really good. Um, but their issue was pass defense. They gave up 218 yards per game, which was ninth in the league. Gave up 17 touchdowns. Did have 11 interceptions, so they did good there. They just gave up a lot of yards through the air. The passing offense was fifth at 199.7 yards per game, at 13 touchdowns and nine interceptions. Taking a look at the turnover ratio, which I like to look at. Like I said, they had nine interceptions thrown, but this is showing they had 10. So we'll go with the number that the Prairie View site had. They have 10 interceptions thrown and five fumbles, which is 15 turnovers, and 11 interceptions and five fumble recoveries for the defense. So they were a -1 in the turnover margin. So not good, or not really good, not that bad, but just not really enough to win those close games. Defensively, they were 10th in sacks at 18, so not a lot of pass rush there. That's another reason why the pass defense kind of struggled. The offensive line gave up 37 sacks last season, so that was next to last. Really struggled there, protecting the quarterback at times. When you look at what they did on third downs, they were ninth in third down offense at 32.5%. Third down defense, they were sixth at 36.5%. Fourth down offense, they were 10th at 33%. And fourth down defense, they were ninth at 57%. So they kind of struggle getting off the field at times. Uh, Red zone offense, they were 21 of 27, 77%. Um, those 27 red zone attempts were the fewest in the league. So they honestly did not get in the red zone that much. When you look at it compared to everybody else, there was only one other team who had less than 30 attempts in the red zone, and so they just did not get there a lot. They did have 12 touchdowns in the red zone, nine rushing, three passing. They were 9 of 11 on field goals, and they turned the ball over three times, a fumble, and two turnovers on downs. Uh, Fourth red zone defense, 36 of 44 for 81%. Gave up 20 touchdowns, 13 pass rushing, seven passing, 16 of 19 on field goals. They did have four takeaways in the red zone, one interception, two fumbles, and one turnover on down. Um, they did also struggle with penalties. They had 100 penalties on the season for 954 yards. That was 10th in the league for both of those marks. Averaged 79.5 yards per game on penalty. So that's another reason why they kind of were in that in that mid range of turnovers. They just couldn't. They really couldn't get out their own way with fumbles, and just converting third downs and extending drives. Just really couldn't get it done there, and that would lead to a 5-7 record, 3-5 in conference. That kind of stuff will lead to that, and that will cause you to really struggle at times. So they chose to go in a different direction, and it was warranted, to be able to move forward and focus on the future, and that's what they did. So when you look at what they have coming back, Um, they do still return some quality guys. I mean, they obviously brought in a ton of guys, but they do return some quality guys like Lamaje McDowell at running back, 115 carries, 482 yards, 7 touchdowns, average 4.2 yards per carry. Also, Connor Wisham and Chase Bingman, also a guy that come back in the backfield. Uh, and like I say, I think a lot of people focus on the new guys, and that's to be expected. But the returning guys, they aren't slouches either. So there are some really solid guys that can get it done. Um, so I expect to see the run game be solid if the offensive line can gel, and they have some very experienced guys coming in. Um, Spencer is one. He came from Central Arkansas. Those kind of guys, along with a guy like Caden Bowers, can help anchor this offensive line. Like I said, when you have a lot of new guys on the offensive line, it's going to take a little while for that to gel. But if they do, then that adds up. Now this is a very experienced offensive line in terms of guys playing in other places. Um, there's multiple grad students and seniors on this offensive line, so the maturity issue won't be a problem with this group. Just the chemistry as a whole, as a unit, is going to be important. But that they do have those guys that have been around a lot of football, so that's definitely going to help, and probably even shorten that curve for the offensive line to get together and make some things happen. Now, when you look at who is behind the center, um, there's a few candidates. Cam Peters is the one guy that played at PV last season, coming in. Um, last season he was in 8 games. He was 68 of 132, had 4 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, 925 yards, a little longer 72. So he did see extensive action last season. Was kind of up and down, but that is a guy that has played. But they brought in quite a few guys to take that reign. Barring any mystery guys, I'm not even getting into all who ain't there and who is there. I can only work off of what I see. If y'all if they they got secret guys like Mace making secret songs, then I can't do nothing about that. But looking at the guys that they have, a guy like Blake Murphy, Tyler Nelson, Tevin Carter, all those kind of guys are definitely going to be in the mix. And if whoever comes out on top definitely has some weapons on the outside to get the ball to. Uh, New guys who are very, who are very intriguing to see play. They brought in a lot of outside talent from different places at the receiver position. I know a guy a lot of people name has kind of rung in, came in a little bit late in the cycle, and that's Tristan Golightly, 6'4", 205. Again, another experienced guy. I mean, Coach Jackson did say they're a 21 and up group, so they looking to bring in experienced guys more so than the youthful guys, and that can work a couple ways. If you're bringing in a lot of guys to play right away, that helps as long as you're building depth behind that, so those guys will be ready. That'll be that's good. Otherwise, if you're loading up to win now, and your younger guys don't develop, then you kind of starting the cycle over again. But this is a staff and a coach that I trust, so I think whatever they feel is gonna be that is going to be the key. And then you give them the grace to make some things happen because they have experienced staff, so that really helps there. uh Jeremiah Ratliff is the top returning guy at wide receiver. 11 games, 17 catches, 158 yards, 1 touchdown. um you can kind of look for them to spread the ball around. I think they're going to try to spread the ball around through the air. So it's vital to find out who is that signal caller, and who can make some things go defensively. They're going to be aggressive. They're going to get at after you. They say they're going to hit, and I mean, that's something most people say, but that's something that we'll see in action really, really shortly. Jamal Marshall is the leading returner on the defensive line with 12 games of action, 32 tackles, two tackles for loss, one sack, five quarterback hurries, and a forced fumble. And like every other group, they brought in quite a bit of competition, and quite a few guys who are capable of making plays. So um, it's tough for me as an outsider to pick, to pick who is, in what spot in these situations. But when you look at that defensive line, especially the defensive tackles, you have guys 6'1", 317, 6'5", 307, uh, 6'4", 305, 6'3", 375. So they do have a lot of, they do have the size there um, to kind of plug up some things in the middle and allow some of those guys who are, in the back end to work. Um, and Javen Jackson is a guy who came back at linebacker from last season. Had a strong season. Again, like I said, it's tough to say, what the new guys coming in, what returning guys are holding down spots. But Jackson had 47 tackles last season, 2.5 tackles for loss, one pass breakup, three quarterback hurries, and a block kick. Um, they did definitely want to get better in the secondary and more, explosive there. Um, More size. They brought in a ton of defensive backs. Eric Zachary is a guy who a lot of people are high on. Played as a freshman last season at PV, so he's coming into his second year in 10 games of action. He had 29 tackles and an interception. Also had three pass breakups, and so really, really solid for a younger guy. And if he can continue to grow and mix in with those new faces, also, Cameron Franklin is another guy who is returning, actually the leading tackler returning in the secondary with 34 tackles, two sacks, excuse me, two tackles for loss, an interception, three pass breakups, and a fumble recovery. I mean, a forced fumble. So they do have some guys coming back, and like I said, when you look at what they brought in, they definitely brought in a lot of guys um, in all positions in the secondary. So you can kind of look at it. Just looking at some of the defensive backs they have. I mean, they have cornerbacks 6'2", 6'1", 6'1", 6'3", 6'1". So they definitely have some nice big corners, and that's gonna help, with some of these bigger wide receivers in the conference. And then they have a lot of safeties. I'm sure some of those guys are gonna be hard hitters. They have a various range of sizes at that position. So like I said, I'm interested to see how all this gels, and that's what makes this preview a little bit tougher because you're not necessarily you're not you can't really draw on a lot. I mean, obviously, if a guy's productive where he came from, you can count on him to be productive where he's at, but that's not necessarily guaranteed. Um, and so, I'm gonna do the rest of this preview in a couple ways, and I'm gonna do it looking at it in from two angles. I'm gonna look at it from the plus end, and I'm gonna look at it from the negative end. Like I said, if you are pie in the sky, 100%, I know you feel like this team going 12-0, they're gonna run through everything, and that's all good. But I can't do I can't do my show like that. So if that's what you want to hear. You're not gonna hear that. But I do. I think this team is gonna be good. I think they have the potential to be really good if things all come together. They definitely have potential to win the division and make the SWAC championship game if all things come together. Um, and they have the potential to be, just be. I don't think this team is going to be anything less than a team that's battling for the West Division. I don't think they're going to win. Only win a few games, but I think there's a lot of pieces that need to come together in action that we can't forecast here. I mean, if you a purple and gold guy, then you can forecast whatever, and you can sell yourself on that. Again, that's just not how I work. So I don't want to have anybody looking at me, calling me a hater because I'm not saying these dudes is gonna run roughshod over everybody. that's not what I do. I don't even do that for my own team. So if you're clicking on this for the first time because you see PV, that's not what you're gonna get here, and that's just not who I am. I mean, I don't even do that for my own team, so I'm not about to do that for nobody else's team. But anyway, let's looking at the schedule. It was just tough to predict this schedule because again, I don't know what this team's gonna look like when they come out on the field. So I I initially gave them a win total of 6.5, but I'm leaning more towards 7. I mean, they do have a manageable non-conference schedule. Um, and if they can win those games and do fairly well in conference, then yes, they'll win 7 games, maybe even 8. But it's tough for me right now to say that I think they're gonna beat this team. I think this team gonna beat them because I don't really know how they truly match up with anybody. We haven't seen them in action. Other teams you can do that because you at least have a baseline to work off. You kind of know how certain pieces play for that team. You already got a track record of certain guys and certain coaches in action, so you can kind of mold and meld how things work. But looking at the schedule, they open up with Texas Southern. Interesting game. I'm marking as basically every SWAC game except for probably the last two. I'm marking as toss ups because I don't really know how they match up with these guys. Um, so they open up with Texas Southern again, big game. The winner is going to be definitely in good shape in the division. Loser gonna not be out of it, but somebody's going to have some questions to answer if they lose. And when you for both of these programs, a loss in this game kind of makes you reevaluate things, at least from outside perspective. So this is a big. I like to call them perspective games. This is a big perspective game. In reality, it's not a lot that's gonna change whether you win or lose. But outside eyes and outside perception, a loss in this game can set you behind the 8 ball. In standings, you're gonna be playing catch up at least for a couple weeks, but not enough to be out of the race. So, you can lose this game and still win the division. Nobody wants to lose this game on either side, but somebody has to. But I marked it that way. They get UT Rio Grande Valley at home. That's a program that's new, so they should beat these guys. They've been scheduling pretty good for the most part. Um, so I think that's a beneficial game. I'm marking it as a W. Rice is interesting. Don't know, again, don't know how they're gonna match up with anybody. Obviously, you could say they're gonna beat Rice. I would love for that to happen. I would love for the SWAC to win quite a few FBS games, and maybe they'd be the one to get it. I can't say they can't because I don't know, but right now I'm leaning the other way with that. Northwestern State, you beat them last year, you get them at home. They're still a program that's kind of struggling, so that's your second home game, so you should be able to come out on top there. And then you get into conference play for 3 weeks. Um, you get Grambling in Dallas, interesting game. Again, like I said, I just don't know a lot of how things are going to match up. So most of these next 3 games, I am marking them as toss-ups. Grambling in Dallas at Alcorn and at Southern. Those are 3 division games that are gonna really shape your season. If you win those 3 games, and if you come into that stretch already beating Texas Southern, and you win those 3 games, then you're 4-0 in conference, and the division is basically yours. You only have one non-division game after that, so you really could really solidify yourself as the division leader if you win all 4 of those games to open up SWAC play. If you split them, then you find yourself kind of chasing whoever maybe has one loss, or maybe somebody else is undefeated in the conference at that point. Then you're playing a little bit of catch up, but things still can change. I don't really foresee them being worse than 2-2 in conference at that point. If they are 1-3, then something is wrong, and I don't really foresee that. So like I said, worst I say they'd be 2-2 in conference at that spot, possibly 4-0. And then, like I said, before 4-0, then every all bets are off, and this team is a division champ. Almost, you can almost put it in pen at that point. You get Lincoln at home, and then you get Bama State at home. Two very different types of games, but the opportunity to solidify yourself in the division in the conference is huge. Um, you could say early in this, at this point, you could say Bama State is a contender for the conference championship, so this could be a potential matchup for that. Um, and then again, it could not be, but it's a home game, and traditionally before last season, Prairie View had beat Bama State 9 times in a row. So historic, that's 9 times in conference, 9 times in college football is two or three different recruiting classes. So that's multiple different guys beating these teams multiple years. So when it's trends like that and they spread over time, that's just a historical trend. It doesn't matter who's on the field for those two teams. A lot of times it goes their way. So they can get back to that. It's at home. You got an opportunity there. You close out with 3 games that I think you'll be favored in. um, I do have Alabama A&M as a toss-up just because I don't really know exactly what the Bulldogs are. Of course, when these two coaches, Coach Shade and Coach Jackson, met in the playoffs, Valdosta State was able to win that game handily. But that's two different teams, two different times, whatever. We don't, you can't really put a lot of stock into that, but that is there. Maybe that just means he got his number, and it could carry over. And then you close out with 2 games that I definitely marked as W's. I mean, if at any point either one of these last 2 games is looked at as anything more than a W, then that's when you have a problem. Um, and that's Pine Bluff and then Valley on November 15th and 22nd to close out the season. So the schedule is not I mean, when you look at conference play, you get Valley, Valley, Bama State, and Alabama and them in your East Division opponents. Um, those are 3 games that you'll be at least a slight favorite at this point. You got 2 road games in the division, and then you have 3 road games in the division and 1 neutral site and only 1 home game in your division opponent. So you're gonna have to win on the road um, in conference to get over the hump. And then your non-conference games are pretty manageable. You definitely have a great chance of going 3-1 in the non-conference. So three three non-conference wins, 4 conference wins, that puts you at 7. So, that 7 is definitely a manageable number. Like I said, you can go up more, but at this point, a baseline to me is 7. That's a solid number. I think they're gonna go 4-4 in conference? I don't know, but I don't think they're gonna be worse than that. Um, if they can, like I said, if they can start off with a if they start off with a win, then that gets the ball rolling. If you can win those 3 games, that 3 game stretch with Grambling, Alcorn, and Southern, you can win those 3. Like I said, again, you're 4-0, and you're sitting in the driver's seat. Other anything else, you're kind of chasing, and I don't know. Like I said, I'm not a big intangibles person, but I do look at how teams handle adversity, and you don't know how a team gonna handle adversity till you see them do it. I mean, if you got a team that played well with their backs against the wall the previous year and they brought back a lot of those guys, then you can anticipate that team playing well with their back against the wall the following season. If a team struggled when they punched in the mouth and they bring back a lot of guys that struggled then, if they have that a core of those guys returning, a lot of times that team gonna continue to struggle if they get punched in the mouth. You don't really know how these guys are gonna respond when the chips are down. We can say they're gonna do well, and they possibly could. They could fold. I mean, there's so many directions to go with this team. We don't, and in a football season, it don't look long, but it is. And you're regardless of your level of talent, regardless of your coaching staff, regardless of everything, you have to have those bounces, and when the chips are down and you're back against the wall, you bounce back type of games. There are very few teams that just run roughshod through a conference, especially the SWAC. Even the greatest teams in the SWAC have had games where they have to dig and claw to beat somebody that maybe they shouldn't have to struggle against, or a game a little bit closer than you expect. Anything can happen. I don't want anybody to go down, but sometimes that'll happen. And so you just have to be ready for everything. And if this team can handle that kind of stuff, then they're gonna definitely be a challenger. And to me, that's the biggest question that we won't even be able to answer until the season starts. I mean, you can say it and I can say it, but that don't make it so at this point. So that's what makes this team so intriguing, because there are so many ways that this thing can go. And I'm looking forward to seeing it all play out. So right now, like I said, my conservative pick is 7-5. I'm gonna I'm gonna go 7-5. Yeah, I'm saying 4-4, but I don't really believe that. But that's kind of how I calculated it out. So I do think this team is going to be really good, and I think if they start fast in conference, it may be too it may be tough to stop them. So how they handle adversity is what I want to look at. That's my question. How they handle adversity, because it's coming. I mean, adversity comes for everybody. You can say, oh, my dudes, my coaches, this and that, bro. It happens to the best of them. Any team that wins a championship gonna have a game where they might have to dig deep and get through it. So I ain't buying that that won't happen. I ain't buying that brand. So if that's how you feel, if that's what you believe, then that's what you believe. But here, I believe adversity comes for everybody. How you handle it is what gets you over the hump. So again, in closing, this team got the potential to be really, really good, or this team got the potential to be mid. I'm leaning kind of more to the good point, with the potential to be a conference championship game participant. So again, we'll see. That's all I can say. 30 minutes of we'll see. So with that being said, man, I'm your tour guide around the SWAC. See what's coming at you, and we are up out of here.